Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. Our guest is Tony O'Connor, former lawman, history enthusiast or expert, and golfer, champion racquetball player, and stand-up comedian, and now author. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you. And stay away from your TV sets because I have a terrible cold.
Yeah. So you've done a lot in your life. I know we were talking beforehand, and you said that, I haven't ever accomplished anything.
Sometimes I feel that way.
I actually look at you as one of the most inspirational people that I know, and I know you want to wear hip boots when I tell you that. Oh, you don't need hip boots, though.
I don't need them.
No. Well, let's talk a little bit, before we talk about your book, talk a little bit about Tony O'Connor, because you're not just any Tony.
I would be just any Tony had I not lost both my legs and my arm in 1967.
Right.
And as I say in the book, it's not an autobiography by any stretch. It's fiction. But I do, in the foreword, I do say the greatest gift God ever gave to me was my accident, losing my 3 limbs.
Right. But mention, I know how you lost your limbs, but just because you were kind of, I won't say you were up to no good, you were up to mischief.
Both.
Yeah.
I was in a freight yard. I grew up in Brooklyn. We used to go into freight yards to play.
Yeah.
And I climbed on top of a boxcar to throw a snowball, and the high tension wire, about 12 feet thick, I hit it with the back of my hand, and the 11,000 volts went in my hand, came out my legs, and threw me off the boxcar into the snow. The pain of hitting the wire is indescribable. I would go through the next 6 months of pain before I would do that 6 seconds on the wire again. But I was laying in the snow, semi-conscious, and I looked up, my hand was still attached to the wire, and I looked down and both my feet were on fire. And I'm a smart guy. I said, this is probably not good.
And you called it the most shocking day of your life.
Day, ba-dum, ba-dum.
Yeah. So then it was all touch and go.
Yeah, I can't. There's a lot of similarities in the book to my life. When I got to the hospital, I was pronounced dead on arrival. They thought they had lost me on the way from the freight yard to the hospital, and lo and behold, they didn't.
Right. Then you ended up in...
Well, then they gave me defibrillators and brought me back to life. And my mom and dad had come in to identify the body, and I still had facial expression. And I guess they felt they goofed when they said I was dead.
Yeah, they did.
My wife says I'm fine except for the brain damage.
I will say this. I'm going to pull the rug out from you a little bit. While you are extremely inspirational, I look at your wife, Gigi, as inspirational.
More so.
Putting
up with me.
Yeah, people could have, I understand that, of course she knew you were missing an arm because you can't wear a prosthesis, but here she was, beautiful young lady.
Gorgeous.
And this fella with only an arm, and she overlooked that, and she even overlooked your personality. And
we lived at Netto's Trailer Park in Coventry, and there was an itty-bitty pond.
Yeah.
It was about the 3rd time we went out, and we were going to go swimming in the pond. And she didn't know I had no legs. I parked the car near the dock. I went on the dock and took my legs off, and I asked her, "Can you put these in the car for me?" And the look on her face was like, "Oh, he's missing his legs too." Yeah. I said, "I ain't going to see this girl again."
But she overlooked it.
I blinked and I had 4 children.
Yeah. As we move forward, I remember you telling me the one thing that you really struggled with changing diapers.
Couldn't do it, not with one hand.
Yeah.
I could shoot a gun, arrest people, use a chainsaw, play racquetball, golf, but I got Gigi convinced I couldn't change a diaper with one hand.
But could you?
For the record, I'll say no.
Wait just a second here.
Kids wiggle around enough. It's tough to change a diaper with one hand with a kid jumping all over.
Right.
I would put him in the bathtub and use the hose.
And how many years, then you worked for immigrations, how many years?
28 years as the border guard.
Right. And do you consider, the word handicapped is bounced around, or disabled, or did you ever view yourself as handicapped?
I guess so. Yeah, somewhat.
But you could do because you can't even remember how many holes in one playing golf, racquetball. I heard you're unstoppable.
Oh.
And
total exaggerations. Leave the exaggerations to me.
Yeah. You're also when you're on your comedy routine, I understand that in Florida, you sometimes present yourself up as being on the losing end of a alligator.
What an alligator
match.
wrestler looks like when the alligator wins. Yeah.
So now come forward. You are now an author, and I've got your
My first
book.
fictional book.
Oh, that's true. You do. You have written. That is true. Yeah. You have written history books, but
right. Accurate.
For God, a journey of faith. And you said this is, even though some of it parallels your life.
Right.
There's threads that this is not your life.
No.
Yeah.
But as I write in the foreword, it's lots of similarities. The trooper who loses his legs, he loses both his legs in an accident from a truck driver out of control on black ice. It wasn't his fault. They become best of friends.
Right.
And I have two sons. I know about law enforcement because I worked at the border. I know about amputations, and I know about golf.
Right.
But number one, I know about my belief in God.
Right.
8 billion people in the world, 8 billion different opinions of what God is.
Right. And I saw some of your beliefs come out in the. What is the main character's name?
Tom.
Okay. I saw a lot of your beliefs just from knowing you for so many years
absolutely.
come out. And it's like when you lost your legs, most people would be searching how it wasn't their fault. That wasn't my fault. That was the railroad. But whose fault was it? You losing
100% mine.
Yeah.
No, I never blamed anybody but me.
And I think the fella who hit Tom, the Frenchman there, JP. I had it back
in the book.
Yeah, JP. He didn't. He acted. It was his fault. His fault with
nobody's fault.
His fault with road conditions, whatever. And then they. I don't want to give away too much, but
give the whole thing away. I don't care.
They become friends.
Yeah.
And
what happens is the state police show up, other troopers trying to save him on the black ice, and they couldn't get near his truck. His patrol car was stuck under the side of the hay truck.
Right.
And it was on fire. His feet were on fire, his legs were on fire, and no one could get close enough to his vehicle to hook the chain up that was already hooked to a police car.
Right.
The guy who drove the truck went under the truck on fire and finally got hooked up, but he passes out because he's got burns to his face, burns to his chest, both his hands. Right. So they become good friends. It was an accident, but it was JP's choice to help him save his life.
Right. How did this book come about? Because I know you weaved in some of your beliefs in it. And by the way, this is not a preaching book. This is not how to live your life. This is just you weaved
my beliefs in God.
Yeah, but you weaved it into other people, and it was in I didn't feel that it was preaching. It was, you know what I mean?
Oh, you didn't read the whole thing then. I wouldn't say it's preaching, but I have some strong beliefs about who God is.
Right.
I was brought up to fear God.
Right.
My religion that I was brought up in, everything was a sin.
Right.
Matter of fact, we used to joke about my religion being a life of guilt.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no, that religion. I've heard that about that religion too.
I see God as love, kindness. He didn't create us to punish us. He created us so we would love him and he would love us back. And that's the main theme of the book. And I also see God in the book as someone with a great sense of humor. If it would make a great sequel to the movie Oh God.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. That's what George Burns.
Yeah, actually, when God finally appears to Tom in the book, he says, "I look a little like George Burns, don't I?" And he doesn't accept him as God. And he says, "Well, I did that because you asked."
I'll fully admit I got through about half of it.
The best half is the last half.
Because you just dropped it off to me a couple days ago. And you even talk about, in the book, about some things you, over the years, you're just saying, well, this doesn't make sense. And you're trying to understand, like, okay, if there's a God, and if there's a good God, why did we lose $6 million, 6 million people in the whole...
Yeah, I have no understanding.
And I think
we put too much value on our 60, 70, 80 years here.
Right.
This is just a testing ground.
Right.
And in the book, Tom asks God, what is hell? And God replies, whose name is Divin, a little joke on divinity.
Right.
Divin, he says, I won't tell you what hell is. I'll tell you what heaven is.
Right.
He says, do you remember when you were down and out and I put my arms around you and hugged you and made you feel better?
Right.
And he says, it was the most unbelievable feeling in my life. He says, well, here, picture a small lake and drop a rock in the middle. I am the center. The more ripples away you are, call the outer ripple if you want hell, because you know you're never going to get closer in eternity. But it's not, who would God be to put people in flames? He didn't create us to make us burn in fire. We may be in a thirst for love,
right?
But I was brought up to fear. I was brought up to fear God, and if you did anything wrong, even if you could live a perfect life and at the last minute do something wrong, you're in the fire. No. And then I asked God, Tom asked God that in the book, and God said, "No, I'm more into averages." And I'm shocked at how well it's selling. That has knocked me off my feet that I don't have.
Knocked you off your feet. I don't know if I mentioned it. Did we mention the name of your comedy show, which was
I think you did, doing Stand Up Without Legs.
Stand Up Without Legs, and so knock your feet. I know occasionally you like to haven't you actually broken? You've broken one of your legs.
Oh, many times.
Playing something.
Many times.
And
not once.
Doesn't require you going to the hospital.
Oh, I broke one in half skiing years ago, and the darn thing broke right at the weak point, which is in the middle of the leg.
Yeah.
And the bottom was in the ski boot and went down and into this group of women, and they looked very upset. And I told them, "Don't worry, I'm tough."
Now, if you wanted to make yourself not only handsome but maybe tall,
I have more hair than you.
Yeah, that's true. Can you like jack up your legs, or can you buy new legs to put on a few inches? If you want to be.
I've stayed 5'11", even though I'm shrinking. Yeah,
so if you want to,
they're out of proportion to my body.
Yeah.
Vanity.
Yeah. But no, I haven't read the whole thing, but it's great. And I was particularly interested. This person who wrote about the author, he seems to have known you pretty good.
Oh, he's a genius.
Yeah, I know. He told a bit about your. He goes on talking about your life, Civil War Roundtable. That was me.
Yeah.
I was honored to be able to do the about the author in Tony's book. But Tony, even when you're not trying to be funny, you're funny. It's like the time you borrowed a boat from somebody. Talk about out on Lake Caspian. You borrowed a boat. Wasn't it? You borrowed a boat
canoe.
A canoe.
We used to go because I'm cheap. My wife and I used to go down to Lake Caspian before we were married, and they played classical music out of this lodge. And This guy came over with a canoe with pillows in it and everything. He said, here, take your wife out for a paddle. And he put pillows in, and I thought he was going to give her the paddle, but he gave it to me, and he said, hey, you paddle. And I became good friends with him. Didn't realize it till later on. It was Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist.
Yeah.
And we became pretty good friends.
Yeah, he even went to one of your Civil War roundtables.
He spoke to our Civil War roundtable.
Yeah, and what I found interesting, he just came and he
Zero security
Yeah, zero.
in a 5 to 10-year-old Subaru.
Yeah.
And when he got up, he told me, don't make anything special. Don't give me a big introduction. Have fun. So he sat with Butcher Vachon.
Yeah, Paul the
Tom
Butcher
Tonellin.
just passed, yeah.
But when he got up to speak, I first introduced, you probably know my buddy here. We don't put that in the beer like we used to. Now I looked over, Rehnquist is there. Oh, my God. But he gets up to speak. And just about as he's ready to speak, I jumped up again. I said, wait a minute. And he says, now what? I said, Bill, I got this ticket for parking in Newport today. Can you take care of it? And he had more power in his voice. He says, sit down. Oh, he was fun.
Yeah.
Just a down-to-earth regular guy.
Yeah. And you mentioned Paul the Butcher.
Yep, good friend of mine.
Before he died, I
Mad dog.
I did a sizable series on him, and he was a fighter in the ring, but I'll tell you, he beat 2 deadly kinds of cancer before he finally went. He
was a gentleman.
He beat colon cancer. He beat throat or esophagus cancer, and then even when he was dying and he knew he was down for the count, he had that jolly sense of humor. I did not know the Butcher when he was.
We're all down for the count.
Yeah, but we are, and we're just getting a little closer every day. But the thing is with Paul, I didn't know him when he was in the ring. I knew of him, but he was such a nice man.
A gentleman.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure.
Right. So back to your book. How can you buy a copy of your book?
Oh, you gotta.
Do you hand deliver them like you did to me, right to the house?
Yeah, I can do that too. But if you type in Amazon, I don't know if they can show that or not.
Yeah.
Fore, F-O-R-E, like in golf, you won't find it. It just comes up as Fire Guard or something. You got to put it in under Tony O'Connor.
Right.
Then you'll find the book.
Do you know what happened? Have you ever been talking in front of a device like a phone or something, and then all of a sudden just things start popping up related to what you were talking about? Well, I was on I can't remember which program on the computer, and all of a sudden your book pops up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it's getting out there.
Well, like I said, I just found out last night it's one of the best sellers out there on spiritual books. I was hoping when I did it because I wanted to praise God.
Right.
My prayer life stunk. I would say repetitious prayers like a robot.
Right.
And they meant nothing. So I said, well, maybe I can praise God by writing a book about what I believe God is.
Right.
And maybe 1 or 2 people will say to themselves, I kind of agree.
Right.
8 billion people, 8 billion different beliefs in God.
Right.
No.
And I don't know if you want to mention this.
I guess I'm not going to have a choice
but
now.
we won't mention the actual name of the group that you had trouble with the book.
Oh, yeah.
But do you want to give
I'd love to
high five to the person who saved this book?
If I had 2 hands, I'd give her a high 10. Tracy Ashman, who does Northeast Kingdom Publishing, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
She did more for me in 30 minutes than the other company that I dealt with in India. How may I help you, please?
Yeah.
And they charged me a good deal of money. For 6 months I worked at it. I couldn't get the darn thing done. Tracy Ashman was fantastic.
And she lives right here in Newport.
Right. In your old house.
My old house from 35 years ago.
I got nothing but praise of her.
Yeah, she. So yeah, I figured you wanted to put a plug in.
Oh, I
for
do.
her.
I do. And like I said, I never dreamed the book would sell this well.
What does Gigi think about it? Since she's the brains of the outfit.
She likes it. She thinks the book is good.
Yeah.
She's dedicated. The dedication is to Gigi, and it does say, "Without whom I wouldn't exist."
Yeah, and I also recognize
You
that
could read the back cover. Now that tells the whole story of the book.
one of the Tom's wife is, what is it? Her name's Gail, right?
Yeah.
And that's Gigi's. No.
Real middle name.
Yeah, real middle name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always have a
It's
hard
all
time.
that character is based on my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And my two sons, loosely based on them.
right.
We had a hay dealer that used to come through the border at North Troy all the time, and the JP is based on him.
Yeah. What was JP's?
But it turns,
Goodrow? JP Goodrow, was it?
yeah,
Yeah, JP Goodrow.
Jean-Pierre.
Yep.
But it's mostly, hopefully, gives some people a feeling they're not alone about the way they feel about God. I don't think I'm the only one that feels that God is a friend, not an enemy.
Right. Are you going to have it are you eventually going to have it in stores around here?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you the internet, I think we have a bookstore somewhere up on East Main Street.
Yeah, I've stopped in there.
Yeah, I haven't.
But if someone had told me on May 2nd, when this book came out on Amazon, that I would have sold 6,000 copies in 1 month,
Right.
I would not have believed it. I'm still having trouble believing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is a lot. You did well. And the thing is I like it because it's not like my attention span is about that of a squirrel or something, and it's short, concise,
Right.
and it doesn't go into all kinds of theology
No.
and it's just a fun book to read.
And God is your friend.
Right.
He's not.
So all right, I'm going to get a little bit into. So how do you when the Bible was written, how do you separate like the fire and the brimstone and all that?
No, the fire is being away from God. It's not flames.
Right.
It's the agony of knowing during your testing period here on earth, you live the selfish, thoughtless life of others.
Right.
And in the book it says, Tom asked him what's the right religion? And Devin answers, none of them, all of them. And he says, well, I don't understand that. So Devin says back to him, do you really think a Buddhist monk who starts his day with prayer, prays all day long to God, and ends his day in prayer to God, do you really think he's not going to be near the center?
Right.
Of course he's going to be.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of Christian people will dislike me for that.
Oh yeah. Now, and if I recall right, didn't you? Do you have a brother named Tom?
No. No, I have a brother named John.
Oh, John. Okay. Yeah, one of those.
I got
Okay.
a bunch of brothers.
I was going to ask you if you named it, if the character.
No, Tom is just pulled out of sky.
Yeah. So what are the other books you've written? Or
Oh, but The Death of Lincoln, and that was a remake of Clara Loughlin's, and I did that with Michael Kaufman, who's the leading expert on the assassination of Lincoln. I got thrown in as the co-author. I wasn't.
Right.
Then I did Willie Went to War,
Right.
about the youngest person to get the Medal of Honor,
Right.
because the foundation of his house is very close to where I live.
Right.
And I got interested in him, and the next thing I knew, I had a file that big on him, wrote a book which absolutely stunk.
Yeah.
So I hired a professional author to rewrite it. So yes, I'm still on the covers working, but I didn't put it together right.
So are you trying to say Gigi wrote this and you just put your name
No,
on here?
Gigi, no.
No.
This took me 3 years.
Yeah.
I wrote it 3 years ago, got to Florida, hit delete on the whole darn book. Went back 2 years ago, looked at what I wrote, deleted the whole book. So Gigi says, when you go to Florida this past year, you're going to write the whole book, you're going to get a publisher, and you're going to finish it once and for all. So I said, I don't care if it stinks. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to do it.
So do you plan to do any more writing?
I don't know. Maybe. I've wanted to write one about crossing the border. The millions of funny stories that I have about people crossing the border. Wouldn't be able to use names.
Right.
And some of my coworkers were different.
Right.
And I also there's a book out for Civil War buffs called Confederates in the Attic.
Right.
You've heard of it?
No.
Yeah. And this guy goes out and starts finding out what's still around about the Civil War. So Ed Bars, who was the chief historian of the United States.
The guy you almost killed.
Yeah, that's the
another
guy.
story. By accident. By accident.
But he gave me the title for the book because I was going to write about my knowing Ed Bars. James McPherson, who got the Pulitzer Prize, and the head of Princeton, and I got stuck in a brook one time. He was driving, and it's just funny. Yeah. So, I might write another one, but Ed Bars gave me the title. He says, call it, and Ed always baptized you. Says, call it Yanks in the Outhouse. Yeah. It'll sound pornographic. It'll sell.
I think the magic of that. You can connect with people, but a lot of these big people, they're actually the humble ones. They're very approachable. A lot of us,
famous people,
a lot of people think, how do you, you can't talk to. No, most of them, not maybe not Hollywood type because most of them are a special breed. Not all of them. Not all. Like Donald Sutherland.
How much time you got left?
Oh well, probably about 4 more minutes.
The girl comes through the border. She's in the passenger seat, going back many years. And she's got a gray bonnet with a bun on top. And she pulls up before computers and started talking. I said, you know who you look like? She goes, Sandra Bullock? I said, you look just like her. She said, that's because I am Sandra Bullock. I said, what? I said, I don't think so. I said, let me see your driver's license, lady. I said, sure, it was Sandra Bullock, and she was as nice in person as she is in the movies.
Yeah, were you a officer when Ivana Trump used to come across the border?
Not that I know of.
Because she used to teach skiing at Jay.
Not that I know of. But I was.
She was, I think, Winkelmeyer at the time.
Could be. I was on duty many times when the Prime Minister of Canada, Paul Martin, who lived at Knowlton, the Prime Minister of Canada would come through by himself and go skiing. Huh. Can you imagine the President of the United States going up to Jay Peak by himself with no security?
The
border gave me a great experience to meet people,
right?
Especially at North Troy because you had time to spend with people.
And look at that massive border station there now.
Welcome to Russia.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ugly. It's ugly. We begged them. We loved the old building. Not one of us wanted a new building.
Right. Okay. Well, we're about ready to wrap up. Again, you can find it on Amazon by typing in what?
Tony O'Connor. O''CONNOR. Are you possible to get a close up? And that's if you put it under For God, FOREGOD,
right,
you won't find it.
I think, and if I understand right, because I've never used Amazon, but I think the more you're out there, that it gets replicated and everything. So you'll see more sales too.
You know what? Amazon reaches the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Where do you reach with your books? The Northeast Kingdom.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But no, we'll go into the reason I think it'll replicate itself even more now, and
maybe
it'll start popping up like it did on my screen.
Oh, and I could put on my website, Scott Wheeler interviewed me.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's going to get you somewhere.
I'm
going to tell you.
People will return books.
Well, long story. That name got me detained. Well, long story. We were talking about it, talking about the border. I once was even detained in Canada along with an NPR reporter.
And I didn't do it.
No, you didn't. That was only a few years ago. And
I could easily write a book about my 28 years at the border.
You could. Okay, well, I am going to have to now finish reading the book because you've given away some real good stuff in there. Now
it's not long.
Yeah, no, it's actually and it's very easy to read.
It moves. It's common language.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't try to use words people wouldn't understand.
And it's really largely, I won't say kids, but you know, teenagers on
Oh yeah.
on up. This is just a easy read. It's actually one of my more don't let this go to your head because your hair will even fit worse. It's one of my more enjoyable books to
Thank
read.
you.
Just sit back.
It was meant to be enjoyable,
Right.
not theological.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you for being Tony.
And everybody sanitize your TVs so you don't get my cold.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.